Hello there, today I am here to bring you the second half of my February wrap-up. I haven't read a great deal, but it's okay. So the first book I read, and the book which actually took up the majority of my reading this month, was Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. This is a thick book, and I mean there's a lot of writing to a page, so this one took me a while, but it's one that I've wanted to get to for a long time because it's kind of one of those classic magical realism texts that I feel like people generally should read. And I did really enjoy this. It's basically a massive family saga following this boy, let me remember what his name is, Salam Sinai, who is born at midnight on the date when India declares their independence. And it basically follows him through his life after that moment and through all the political turmoil that happens in India in the aftermath of the Declaration of Independence, and also in the coming years of his life. And as it is magical realism, the fact that Salim Sinai is born at midnight on the moment of independence means that he kind of is inexplicably linked to all of the political goings on that happen throughout his life. And he basically finds out quite early on that he has powers where he can connect with all the other children who are born within the hour of midnight on that day, so he can telepathically connect to them, and they form a club called the Midnight's Children, and it kind of goes from there. I really enjoyed this. I think the writing is stunning, especially at some points. It's writing that makes you stop and think, wow. Obviously, it's impossible not to compare this somewhat to 100 Years of Solitude, which is the only other kind of saga-esque magical realism that I've read, and I'm sure there was some elements of this in the inspiration for this story. The only negative, and it's not really a negative, it's a personal thing, was that at points this does get quite heavily into Indian politics, and I don't know much about Indian politics, and that's my fault, but those bits kind of lost me at times, and it is a big book, so there's quite a lot of politics in here, and there are a lot of things that I don't really know about, and I felt like my interest definitely waned at those points, but generally I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars, I believe. I will definitely be picking up more Salman Rushdie. I think he's a really interesting writer, and I would recommend this one if you're into sagas or magical realism. Then I picked up a book. I thought this was going to be a book that I adored. Now this is an outline by Rachel Cusk. I've heard very mixed things about this, predominantly negative things, but I was kind of thinking it sounds like my kind of thing, even though I'm hearing a lot of negativity about it. Basically, this is a book which we follow a woman who is having different conversations. I think it's 9 conversations that she has, 10 conversations, while she is gone to Greece to teach creative writing. There's so much that I didn't like about this book. So the theory behind it I really like, and I think it's a book that tries to tell you something about outlines and about storytelling and about how we tell stories and how we perceive stories, and that aspect I was kind of like, I like that a little bit, but it's hidden behind a load of stuff that just doesn't work, and I actually found this really boring. I gave it 3 stars, but it's more like 2.5, I've got to be honest. I felt harsh giving it that low a score because I would pick up the other 2 in the series, and hopefully they would help me enjoy this one more, is what I'm thinking, but as it stands on its own, I really didn't like this. Now, this is a literary text which really tries to push the boundaries of writing. It breaks a lot of the writing rules, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love a text that breaks the writing rules. John McGregor breaks all the rules, and I adore him. He's my favourite. But this does not, in my opinion, break the rules well. I think it breaks the rules and kind of reminds you why the rules have to be there in the first place, which maybe some kind of meta world is what Rachel Cusk was trying to do, but it didn't work for me. So the main problem that I had with this is that it's 10 conversations, and that's fine, but they're very sparse conversations. We never, for one, get to know our narrator, because she's always listening to other people. She's not speaking herself, which again may have been intentional, but it doesn't work for the sake of the book because you don't care. You end up not caring. Adding to that the fact that these conversations aren't spoken, they are kind of reported, and as I say, that's kind of obviously something to do with the point that Rachel Cusk is trying to make about storytelling. So she's reporting these stories that these people are telling her rather than just giving us the speech. So it's literally a book which is all telling and not showing, and you can get away with that to a certain extent, and I think when done well that is really possible. But to do it for a whole book which is just about conversations that this woman is having, it doesn't work, because you end up just not caring. The amount of times that I just zoned out, I couldn't even, like, this book has made no impact on me because I just couldn't concentrate on the page. It was just dull, honestly, and I think that was the choice that Rachel Cusk made, and I as I say, I can see why she thought that would be a clever choice, but it really doesn't work. It really doesn't work. I can't recommend this book. I kind of hated it, sorry. Then I read my, I won't hold this up for long, Shakespeare play of the month, which was The Tempest. I thought I was going to really love this, and I have to say I did enjoy it, but I actually preferred Hamlet, which I read last month. Tempest is basically about a group of people who get stranded on an island and strange things happen. I'm not going to go into the plots of these Shakespeare plays much because I think everybody kind of knows them. I have to say that I found this story, and it might be because I read it over a period of 2 weeks, and obviously Shakespeare plays are meant to be enjoyed in one short chunk, but I found this story quite tedious in the end, and a little bit lacking. And I also thought that it kind of reminded me a lot of Midsummer Night's Dream. There is obviously huge differences, but the basic plot was kind of the same, just in a different setting with kind of stranger characters. I enjoyed it. I would love to go and see a performance of The Tempest, but I don't think as a reading experience it was the best for me. So it was slightly disappointing, but onwards and upwards with the Shakespeare. And then I finished the month on a short little book, South and West by Joan Didion. This is basically a collection of the notebook entries that Joan Didion made when she was travelling through the South and through New Orleans and etc. It was fine. I really enjoy Joan Didion's style of writing. The only other thing I've read from her is A Year of Magical Thinking, or is that what it's called? Something like that. And I really enjoy that book, and I really like the same style in this. She's kind of quite dark and quite gloomy with her observations, and I quite like that. But ultimately this is a book that's kind of incomplete. It was journals that she meant to turn into something or a complete narrative, and she never really did, so it's just kind of correlated writings, more like an essay collection, I suppose. It was a really interesting look at the South of America, and also Joan Didion's feelings about the West. If you enjoy Joan Didion, I would recommend. I wouldn't say it's a Joan Didion that I would rush out to buy. I picked it up second hand, and that's the only reason I really read it. I also want to read Blue Nights from her. I think that's going to be another one that I really enjoy, but this was okay. So that is everything I've read this month. As you can see, it's not a great deal, but I'm kind of happy. I think I'm leaning at the moment towards the longer books like Midnight's Children, and I knew that that was going to take me a while, and that's fine. I think it's nice sometimes to just divulge in some longer reading. Please let me know down below, A, if you have read any of these, and B, what you've been reading this month, and I will see you next time. Bye!